Erasing all my flaws. What the fuck's a loss? Erasing all my flaws. What the fuck's a loss? What's good, you guys? It's your boy KT, and I am here with episode 2 of Who is KTGODUMB? Who is the man behind the brand, the man that goes dumb? And on this episode today, we are doing my journey in music. Why music? Why do I produce? Why do I record? Why do I write? Why do I do the things I do? That's what today's episode is about, So, last week, we talked about me, Khalid, not KT, but Khalid. And now y'all gonna learn a little bit about KT. Maybe not all the way into the branding, but more so my music inspiration, what pushed me to produce, what pushed me to record songs, and that type of thing, my influences and stuff like that. So that's what we're focusing on today. So, if y'all remember from last episode, I started producing music when I was 18, 19. Well, I would say when I was 18. It was probably late 2018, early 2019 when I got into GarageBand. Because, like I said, the people I was smoking with at the time, I would listen to them freestyle. We would be smoking and freestyling, and that was just the greatest shit ever to me. I had heard people freestyle on the bus, but that was more like battle rap, I've heard battle rap, but I've never heard anybody freestyle like a song, It was sounding like songs. Like I would say, the first, one of my core memories in college is, I was high as fuck, and I woke up in the backseat of the car, and, I'm hearing music. I'm thinking it's the radio. No, it's my homeboys freestyling. And like I said, that was amazing. That, it got me into, freestyling. I was really fascinated by that. Granted, at the time I couldn't put words together like that. I didn't have that confidence in me yet to freestyle. So, but I would just always, I always loved hearing them freestyle, and, the beats they were using too. I was listening to different music than what I was listening to before. I would say, I didn't listen to a lot of underground up until I got to college. I was really listening to what was on the radio, what was mainstream. I've heard this and that of people, but I would say actually no, I lied. It wasn't college. It was mid high school. That's when I really started to get, that's when I really, what's the app called? For those who know, I used to listen to music off of Spinrilla. I would download Spinrilla, get all my music, because I didn't want to pay for iTunes. At the time, we didn't have Apple Music. I was just like, I don't want to pay 99 cents for a song. I don't want to do that. I'd rather just, find it on Spinrilla. And honestly, I would say, through Spinrilla, that's how I discovered Lil Uzi Vert, and Lil Uzi Vert was my favorite artist for years. It was probably, he was honestly, and he's still in my top 3 all time, all time favorite artists, musicians. When I first heard him, it was that was exactly what I was looking for, in a musical artist, because I liked the spacey, vibey, out of this world type of sound, At the time, I didn't really know where to find that at least mainstream. I didn't know about Kid Cudi at the time. I wish I did. Because I can say, when I got to college, Kid Cudi was somebody where I listened to him way more. And I'm like, oh, this is tough. My favorite Kid Cudi album is Man on the Moon 3. I would damn near say it's no skips on there. But that's my favorite project from him. A lot of those songs I have on repeat. I'm influenced by those songs on the album, Now, when I first came out, I was definitely inspired by Lil Uzi, Playboy Cardi, Juice WRLD, The SoundCloud era, it kind of influenced my sound, because that's where I came up musically. That's in high school, that's where I was musically. And a lot of those guys, they were coming up too. I'm not saying I didn't just listen to the melodic rappers. I was listening to Drake. I like Future a lot. Drake and Future, they're up there. Who else? Gunna, Young Thug and them, he was hot at the time. I was always been a fan of Gunna. Uh, I mean, those type of things, you know. But it was definitely, the Lil Uzi Verts, the Kid Cudis, Playboy Cardi. That inspired my production, not my vocal sound, because remember, at the time, this is 2018, 2019. I'm not thinking of being an artist necessarily. I don't see myself as an artist. I saw myself more as a producer. That's what I wanted to be. So, boom. I download GarageBand. I'll be honest, like I didn't have a lot of knowledge of or musical knowledge. I just would listen to a beat and I'm like, yeah, this sounds hard. The bass is thumping. It sounds nice. I didn't know that synths were being used. I didn't know what an 808 was, a hi-hat, open hat. I didn't know what a lot of that stuff was. I knew the sound, but I didn't necessarily know what it was. That. And where do I go with this? I had to build up my skills, because like I said, it felt like I started from nothing, and I built up my skills and knowledge over the years. So that was 2019. It's 2026, so it's been a accumulation of 7 years of grinding and work. A lot has happened. A lot has definitely happened. So let me think. So I was just on GarageBand, learning GarageBand, learning, the nuances of what a beat is, how to make a beat, how to arrange it, different sounds and stuff like that. And, I'll admit, like, it was cool, but I felt limited. It felt like I didn't have a wide selection of sounds, and I was using loops. I was using loops at first. I would put in my own drums, because I mean, drums are easier to make than melodies. It's not too hard to find a drum bounce. But I was using mainly loops, and I felt limited by that. I felt I didn't have as much control. I didn't have as much creative freedom as I'd like. And that's when I started looking around at other systems, other softwares and stuff like that. And that's how I discovered FL Studio. Because I would always see, I would see people using or I would watch tutorials, and that's, majority of them were using FL Studio. Some use GarageBand, yes, but a lot of them were using FL Studio. So I felt that was the standard, and I'm like, I might as well get with the standard, So through 150, I think, for FL Studio, and yeah, that when I got FL Studio, that's when I really started to just shoot. Like, I was making beats all the time. The work, I will admit, it was hella confusing at first. FL Studio was super confusing. It felt like it wasn't GarageBand, and I was just like, it's just so fucking much in this system, in this DAW. I didn't know. Like, I didn't know at first, but I eventually figured it out. I definitely felt like I had way more freedom. I just could do way more. The workflow allowed me to be more productive with it. I loved it. I'm still on FL Studio to this day. I would recommend it to a lot of producers. A lot of producers. So now I start making beats. And around the time I get FL Studio, that's when I really start, I start playing with the keys a little more. I try to make my own instrumentals, my own melodies, my own loops, versus, going to, Looperman or taking a loop off of Looperman, or paying so-and-so for a loop, or using somebody else's loop. I would say, because my main thing was I wanted to be sure that my music was my creation. Now, if I collabed on something with you, I don't mind giving you credit. I'm perfectly fine giving you credit. But a lot of the times I wanted it to be my creation. I wanted to know in myself, I was capable of doing something myself. I didn't I didn't want to have to always rely on somebody else. So that's why I went out of my way to, learn different techniques, learn how to, play some chords on the piano, learn sound design, learn how to sample. Cause I would definitely say learning how to sample, it definitely elevated my production. Um, I feel like I just went off on a tangent. So sampling was definitely, I would say I probably learned to sample. Let me think. I would say like 2020 and 2021. In between those years, that's when I really started like fucking with sampling. And for those who don't know, that's, you would go on YouTube or you would find an older track and then you would flip that into something new. I'll be honest, when I sample, those are typically my hardest hitting beats. Those are like my better beats. They usually they just sound clean. They're just cleaner. I don't know what it is, but when I sample, shit just sounds way cleaner. But I would say year by year, I kept improving my craft. Like I said, I was making beats a lot. I was posting beats all the time on my YouTube. Um, Honestly, like I did it purely out of the love of making music. I love making music. It was fun as fuck. I always said like I always listened to music for the production. I loved the production, and then I got to college. I'm listening to what Lil Uzi's on. I'm hearing what these artists coming up in my generation are on, and I'm like, this shit is amazing. Like, I wanted to make that. I wanted to make a vibe like that, and that's what you know that's why I asked about, how the fuck do people produce music? This and that. That's what led me to this moment. So I would say it was about 2021. I'm producing. I wasn't thinking about being an engineer. I'll be honest. I really wasn't even thinking about making money off of music at first. It to me it wasn't. It was never about money. But then people started approaching me, and they were telling, and I would say like dudes were approaching me a month into like me learning how to produce, telling me, oh yeah, you can go to so and so and try to sell your beats, this and that, and I'm not gonna say I was trash. Did I make some? Not all my beats are great. I'll put it like that, but I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to sell something? And I'm just now learning how to do this. Like, it didn't make sense to me. It's like if I'm going to make money off of if I'm going to make money off of music, I want to make sure I'm giving you a product of value, a quality product. It's not that I didn't feel like I could make a quality product. I just felt inexperienced. So, to me, it didn't make sense to sell my beats at the time. Did I try to sell my beats? Yes, because it just felt like everywhere, people were telling producers, oh, you got to get paid, make sure you get paid, this and that, da, da, da. And it's like, I'll admit, like, it's tough out here for a lot of producers. You don't often get paid. The ones that are really, that are making the 6 7 figures, it's not strictly off of music. They might make it seem like it is. It's not. It's a lot more going on than just the music, because music only pays so much. It only pays so much, especially as a producer. And it's a lot going into it just to get paid off of it. But I just wasn't thinking about being paid, but it felt like, I was being pushed to monetize my product. So, and I'll say, like, honestly, I I wish people didn't try to push for me to monetize it so soon. You know, I don't like being rushed. I don't like being rushed into something if I'm not ready. Cause I mean, yeah, I get it. Sometimes you gotta dive in and get that experience, but it didn't make sense for me to it didn't make sense for me to sell at that time. I'll sell my music now, or I will sell production now, and other things, but I have experience now. But I digress. The first beat I made, I mean, I can't even show y'all. Honestly, I might just find it, and I'm probably gonna just, clip it in just so y'all can hear it. But We had a little bit of technical difficulties. My phone heated up, sitting in the sun. Um, I think I just showed y'all my beat. So I define my production style as alternative rap and R&B. Um, I would consider myself multi-genre, because I make rap and R&B, but I'm willing to make pop. I'm willing to make rock. I make reggaeton. I'm willing to experiment with different sounds and different artists. I don't want to be strictly pop, strictly rap, strictly. I'm not strictly anything. I'm whatever you need at that moment. That's how I go about my production. So now, that was my first beat. When it comes to what motivated and inspired me to become an artist, what inspired my artistry and really influenced it was the people around me. I'll be honest, like, the company I kept influenced me to, rap more and that type of thing. So I would say my first client I had when people asked me to engineer, you know, my first client, his name is Titanic, cool name, but I kind of look at it as like he took a chance on me and he really, not only did he show me that I can make money off of it, because I'll be honest, like I didn't ask him to pay me. I didn't ask him to pay me. He honestly he paid me to do it. He just, he called me up one day, and I was just happy to make music with somebody, because that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to collaborate and, make music with people and, create something great. So to get paid on top of that, it had me feeling great. I was feeling, it had me looking at myself, my brand, my music differently, because he's willing to invest in me. So we started recording. Was it before or after COVID? We started recording. Yeah. So 2021, I would say that's the year I started recording, engineering for people. And that's a whole nother process. It's a whole process, just like recording and production, songwriting. They're all different processes, recording and engineering. Well, let me take that back. Engineering and production are similar but different, and that's a different rabbit hole to go down. So back to my guy Ty. We've been we started recording in 2021, and what really, he wasn't the traditional rapper to me, in a sense. He wasn't, I guess, I don't know, like whatever I thought a rapper would rap about, he wasn't rapping about those types of things. He was rapping. Did he have songs talking about smoking? Sure. Like he was kind of on like a chill, he was on like a J. Cole, Wiz Khalifa vibe. And really, with the music he was recording, like he was kind of using his songs to motivate and inspire, because he had his own brand too. His brand is called Lurst Inc. Lurst Inc. What Lurst Inc. is about is, patience, persistence, and passion. Just being patient with whatever it is that you're going after, having patience to, know that your time is coming, being persistent about whatever it is you're going after, and then being passionate about it too. That it touched me, because I felt like that his brand resonated with me. And because of that, I wanted to go harder for him, because I believed in him. We both believed in each other. And honestly, it came to a point, he started asking, he would just start asking me like, yo, like, you think you can finish off this song? Like he would record a hook and a verse, and then it's like he would purposely leave a spot open, act like he's right, and then be like, yo, Khalid, you think you can lay something down? And at first I'm just kind of like, I ain't no rapper. Y'all don't want to hear me rap. But I'm telling you, the day he got me, it's funny as hell. The day he got me to finally rap, I pulled up to his apartment, and bro, he pulled up the Magnolia instrumental, Magnolia by Playboi Carti. So I'm not expecting this from him. Like, you know, the type of beats he would typically choose or like use for me is like some more R&B as something smooth, like or Rod Wave type of vibes, J. Cole type of vibes, you know, like some melodic, you know. So for him to choose that, it was like, to me, it was, I wasn't expecting him to pick something like that. I would have never expected him to pick some or rap over something like that. So it surprised me. So I was already invested in the song a little bit. And then, you know, he did his thing, and then lo and behold, KT, you want to hop on this? And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I was feeling myself that day. I don't know if the wood was just hitting extra hard that day, but I I I wrote, a couple bars down. I mean, I did that in probably like 15, 20 minutes, you know? Like, I will say, like, do I respect people that can freestyle to like how do I word this? I respect a skilled freestyler. You know, I respect somebody who can just come up with something like that off the top of their head. You know, I wouldn't consider myself a freestyle artist. You know, I write. You know, when I have time to sit and think about what I'm saying, you know, magic is created versus just me spitting whatever comes out of my head. I mean, I'm not Juice World. I'm not Juice World. I ain't like that. But it would be a nice skill to have. But honestly, I liked that song. I might even drop my verse for y'all to hear it. But honestly, like, I liked how I sounded, you know? I've like it was really that. Like, cause my one thing is like when I would practice freestyle, because I practice freestyle. Like, come on now. I was trying to rap over my own beats. Like, I would try to rap over it, you know, just not even on no bullshit, but like just to, just to play with it, have fun with it. Um, I felt like at first, like, I would kind of like talk rap. You know, it's just like, you're not, it sounds like you're talking. You're not really rapping, you're just talking in rhythm, because it's like I didn't really have an idea of a flow. I didn't understand vocal control, and just understanding that, you don't always have to be a one take Timmy. Sometimes it is okay to punch in, you know. But I will say that Magnolia freestyle that I did with Ty, like, that was one of my first time. That was like one of the first times where I was truly like, maybe this is something I can do, And, I would say after that, I started recording, writing and recording more songs. Like, I would have beats that I have that have just been sitting, and I would write to them. I would write to them, I'd be in the car smoking, just trying to freestyle to it, like, have fun with it. And, I would say, like, my first EP that I dropped, Graduation, a lot of those beats, and I dropped that tape in 2024. A lot of those, like, a good amount of those beats I made around that time, 2021, like, To the Top. That was one of the first sample beats I ever made. That was the first sample beat I ever made. And, I didn't use that track until years later. I didn't write to it until years later. A lot of my beats, like, I'm holding on to them, and then years later, either I use them or, somebody else uses them. So it's important, hold on to your tracks. Don't delete your music, because you never know. You might show it, somebody might find it years later and be like, hold up. Now they want your beat. Now they want your song. Now they want to give you a record label or a record deal. My fault. But don't delete your music. So that was one thing. Another big influence for me, really going down the artist road, was my friend Cloud. My friend Cloud, he goes by Spazzo. Uh he definitely, like, inspired me to keep going, because I would say, like, it was a time when Ty didn't live in Ohio. He lived in Florida. He had moved back to Florida. And, it's like, man, it's like, I was salty. I was upset, because I'm like, dang, I lost my music friend. Ty felt like my music friend, somebody I can make music with, because it's like, I didn't have music. I didn't get music friends until Ty came along. But really, I didn't have any other music friends like that until LJ came along. And the thing with LJ is, like, he saw me as a producer. He saw what I had as a producer. And, he said, he always tells me the story. He discovered me through a hashtag. He was just looking through hashtags of Cleveland artists, and then he found me. He found a couple of other people in our circle. And, we just went from there. He wanted to, it was thing, he had ideas. And so I really got to talking to him, and I started realizing, I'm like, this guy, Cloud is on the same type of like, he has the same type of mentality I do, whereas he wants to do something positive with his music. He wants to be able to inspire and help and uplift other people, and that's what he did with me. That's what he tried to do with me when he first met me, and a couple other artists too that I'm still like, we this to this day. So, and it's just like, I really respect the fuck out of him for that, because I'll be honest, it's like, when it comes to music, it just felt like it was hard to get support at first. It was really hard. And I'm not saying I have the craziest amount of support, but it was hard to get people to really buy into or believe my music. Like, I would like, even my own family didn't believe at first, but they are believers now. But it took a while for people to actually believe in me, but honestly, it took me a while to fully believe in myself as well, you know. But having guys like Titanic, having guys like LJ, or not LJ, that's his real name, but Cloud, come into my life and, really show me that, you have a gift, you have a talent, you have something, and that that I have something worth giving to the world. Like, that's what really pushed me forward. Them really showing me that, I have something that's worthy for this world, and that, the dream I have, it's achievable. It is possible. And, I really thank those two individuals a lot, because I really tell myself, and I really feel I don't know where I would be in terms of music without those two. You know, it's been time. Like, I told y'all in the last episode, I doubt myself a lot. I'm my own biggest critic. I'm my own biggest critic. And it's like, I don't want to settle for being mediocre. I'd never want to settle for being mediocre. But it gets tough. It gets tough to really follow your dreams and really stay passionate about your dreams when it's just you. So my advice to any artists, producers, just anybody out there in this world, it doesn't have to be just music, but anything. Find your tribe, find your people, and make sure they're positive. Make sure they leave a positive influence, because I don't know where I would be without having those type of people in my corner, and then off of that, I was able to meet more like-minded people, more positive people, more people that were on the same type of thing I'm on, so find your tribe. That's a necessity. Find your tribe, because they will take you to the stars, the moon, the stars, wherever you want to go. They'll help you get there. So yeah. So my one last thing, I would really say, like, those two, they showed me that, music can be more than a hobby. But really, what I would say, especially what I learned from, because Cloud, like I said, he had the mentality I had of wanting to help and do something, and having that in Cleveland, especially, like, that was needed. But especially with Titanic and Lurstink, like, it taught me that I can create a brand based around mental health, based around uplifting others, based around inspiring others, helping others, like, really, when I look at my music, it's like, I would say, like, my music is kind of like, it's for introverts, stoners, but like, the main three categories I would want my music to be for, I want it to be for athletes, creatives, and entrepreneurs. Those are the three main people that I want to be able to inspire and motivate through my music. Yeah, I'm gonna have stuff for introverted people, quiet, reserved people, because that's just the type of person I am. But that's like my main crowd, and stoners too. So when it comes to my first EP, well, the first, I dropped a beat tape called Hollywood. That shit was fire. And all those beats were from, I made those in my first trip to LA, to Los Angeles. I always wanted to go to LA. That was a dream I had since I was a kid. I always wanted to go to California, and I finally did. And I'll be honest, like, I turned up out there. Like, I really was like, we were out there for 3 days, but it's like I busted out like 15 beats in those 3 days, but all of them were quality. I felt all of them were quality at the time. I felt like that was the best work I was doing, so that's what the Hollywood beat tape is. And then I got it is one song on there with my homeboy Max. He was rapping on there. I gave him it was kind of like a old school West Coast type beat, like a boom bap. It was tough. It was fire. But after I dropped that, and then I was about to graduate. I had told myself when I first started making music, I was telling myself, one day I want to be able to create my own project, something that's mine, not a single, but like a body of work that I can release, and then, to release to the public. So I dropped the beat tape, but then, by the time I was about to graduate, and this is 2024 now, I started recording in 2021. So I would say 2024, that was the first year that I officially, claimed being an artist. I told myself I'm an artist. I'm an artist as well. And I started going to studios, and I started taking my songs to studios because I can mix myself, but I wanted my mixing quality to be there. I wanted it to be there. Like I said, I'm big on quality. I am so big on giving and creating a clean quality. I care about that type of shit. So that's why I would go to a studio. I had recorded 6 songs. Now, some of them I wrote years prior. Like, To the Top, I wrote that years ago. But I just, at that time, I reworked it a little bit, to sound more fire. But I spent the first 6 months of 2024 recording or creating new production if I didn't have anything, or if I needed something new. Titanic is featured on my first tape, The Vision. And it's funny, the story behind that song, I will always remember that session. I'm gonna get my son, or my song, or I was getting my phone out the sun. I didn't want it to heat up again. But The Vision was it was special to me. Like, I would say that was like one of the first times where I really felt like I felt something. I felt an energy, or if my energy was felt, and I wasn't even supposed to be on that song. That's the crazy thing. I just remember, like, I pull it up, and normally when we go to record, we're just in the kitchen. It's a 2-bedroom apartment. It's nothing crazy big. You walk in, it's the living room, the kitchen, and then straight down the hall is the bedroom. So for some reason that day, it was a crowd of people. It was hella niggas. Niggas was coming over, just kicking it, whatnot. And I'm like, all right, we can't be in here. We gotta go somewhere else. So we recorded in his room. And, we did it. We was recording it at first, and I'm like, this is cool. I was really like, I don't know what it was that day, but like, it was really resonating with me, what he was saying. You gotta have vision, my nigga. You gotta have vision. Can you imagine? You just gotta have vision. And it's like, that stuck with me. It stuck with me. And it's just like, I told him, like, let me hop on this. I told him, I'm like, nah, like, let me on this. Like, and it was my beat too. It's just like, I'm like, man, I said I could put something fire. Like, I felt, that was one of the first times I felt confident in my words, in my own word. So I got up there, and it's just like, it's a core memory. I just remember, like, I feel like it's one of my best verses I created. It's one of my best verses. It was probably my best verse at the time, like 21, 22. I don't know what I'm saying, but I just recorded my verse with so much confidence, and, like, I was confident in myself. I was confident in my word. And then I knew like I was really saying something. I was really trying to say something with it. And it's just like I knew it because it's like, bro, like as soon as I finished, it's like I could hear niggas in the other room, like they was silent, like, okay. This is like it kind of gassed me up a little bit because they was quiet when I walked out. So I'm like, they don't want to gas me up too much, I see. But that like I will that I remember that. I remember that day specifically because it's like, and it's something that with music, I've had to overcome a lot, but I proved a lot of people wrong. And that's something I had to realize, a lot of music is proving people wrong. People might not believe in you at first. They might not see your vision. They might not think, they might think you're trash. They might just think, man, this dude ain't shit. He ain't worth the time. He ain't worth the investment. A lot of the times when it comes, like, I've had people, I've shown them my music. I mean, man, I'm not going to go with my parents because that's my parents. But I've shown people my music and they just brushed it off. Or, I would see artists at events, and I would try to network with them and they would just kind of brush me off, or, they wouldn't follow me back because they didn't see any value in me. And it's funny. The biggest thing I look at, though, is, I'll say, you got to have discernment when you networking and working with other people. You got to know why they fucking with you. Because I'll say, like, I'll be honest, it's like I get a little irritated when, when somebody doesn't fuck with me at first, but then they want to come back around. At first, like, I would get annoyed by that. And I really only, like, and I would say, like, what annoys me too is just like, I remember the first time I went to Los Angeles, before that, I had hit up a couple artists asking, like, you need beats, you want recording time? And I remember it was one artist specifically who I'm not going to name, but I was trying to tell him, like, get up with me. I showed him one of my song mixes and he was like, he just, and that was it. So I'm just like, whatever. But then I go to LA and then I come back home and now, oh, let's link up. Let's chop it up. Like, what changed? What changed? Me going to LA? I'm like, I'm making the same music. I'm still the same person, but you fucking with me because now I have money? Is that what it is? Now you fucking with me? I mean, I'll be honest, it's like, I can't fuck with somebody like that because it's like you're an opportunistic person. I can't do that. I would say a lot of times I can say like people just heard the wrong song at first, and sometimes that's just what it is, They might not like this song that you played or performed, but then they hear something else and they're like, oh, it's just it. Or I can say, honestly, sometimes people need a couple listens to know, like, is this what I like? So, I mean, if somebody doesn't like it at first, I wouldn't be pressed about it. I wouldn't be upset about it. It just might not be what that person likes, That's okay. Music is subjective, Like I said, I do, it gets annoying, but that's just, that's what this game is about, proving people wrong, You're going to have to prove some people wrong, so, and I'm going to continue to keep proving people wrong, because I know what I am, I know what I'm capable of, and I know what I'm trying to do with this, I know I'm trying to do something positive with it, Nowadays, it's like, say what you want, I don't care, I like it, I know people around me like what I do. Your opinion is your opinion. So, with that being said, this has been episode 2 of Who is KTGODUMB? The man behind the brand, the man that goes dumb. So, I hope y'all enjoyed this. I hope y'all got to learn a little bit more about me, especially my journey with music and just getting to this point now, 7, 8 years in. I hope y'all can learn something from it too, I really mean it. Like, you're gonna have to prove a lot of people wrong, but you gotta be confident in your ability. Be confident in your skills, be confident in your ability, be confident in whatever your message is, whatever your goal is, be confident in that. But surround yourself with the right people as well. Make sure you surround yourself with like-minded individuals and people that will have your back. Because, I get it, network is your network, but I don't just network with anybody. I don't just work with anybody, you know? I don't. You know, you have to look at, you know, what's on brand, what isn't. If you I mean you can work with people as side quests, but know who you're working with. Know what that person is about too, you know. Have discernment, use discretion. And that's my, you know, it ain't Wednesday, but that's the wisdom I'm gonna give y'all. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed. Y'all can tune in next week for episode 3. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. I mean, I do. I just don't remember what I planned on doing. But y'all will see it next week. Y'all will definitely see by next week. But this is your boy KT. I go dumb, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day.